My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review of Man of Steel, and this review will have spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, there's your warning. But this is a movie that when it came out, it was very divisive, and I feel like over time, it has only gotten more extreme. Many people call this one of the best superhero movies ever made in that it's underrated, while some people absolutely despise this movie. And this is a movie that has always disappointed me. In fact, I remember seeing this movie, and when it came out, it was during an age where I loved almost every movie. And I remember even back in 2013 just being disappointed with this movie, and every time I've watched it since, I want to love it, but I always just leave frustrated. This might be the most frustrating superhero movie ever made. So I'm gonna break my review here into good, mixed, and negatives. So for the good for this movie, the best part of it is Hans Zimmer's musical score. John Williams composed an iconic theme for Superman back in the 70s, and anyone to take over after that had big shoes to fill. And not only do I think Hans Zimmer met that quality, I think he actually surpassed it. It just is big, it's loud, and it just enhances each and every moment. It makes you think that scenes are emotional even if they're not. They make action scenes out to be exciting and thrilling even if they're not. Like, so much of the heavy lifting of this movie relies on his score, and I absolutely love it. It's just got an epic, triumphant sound to it, and he really delivered in that category. Especially one scene I love is when Superman first flies, and Hans Zimmer's score just carries that scene. I also love the opening to this movie. With everything on Krypton, it is rushed, I'll give you that, but it just feels epic in scope. I love the stakes at play, and I love the emotion present. When Kal-El's mom is just watching the world being destroyed right before she dies, I think that's actually the most powerful moment in this movie. And I like the cinematography, surprisingly. I feel like that might actually surprise people because I do like the way this movie looks. And I like how he does those zoom ins. It reminds me of what James Cameron does with the Avatar movies. But while we're talking the look of the movie, I think it's a good time to go into the mixed aspects. And I think the visual effects are very hit or miss. Sometimes I think they look fantastic, but then there's a shot where he's flying through Africa and it's so obviously a green screen. There's this scene where Superman is fighting this giant machine, and I think that looks really awful, but for the most part, I like the look of this movie. I think that the story had potential, and I think some of the action sequences had potential. There was one moment where Zod grabs a steel beam to hit Superman with, and Superman melts it, so then he misses, but then Zod leans in and hits him with the shortened beam, and I thought that was a really great moment. But let's go into the negatives now. First, with the majority of the action in this movie absolutely sucks. It is the very definition of too much. Just this movie doesn't know when to hold back or how to build up properly. Just non-stop, just every action scene is people crashing into buildings, into restaurants and stores, things blowing up. It's just always so big that you just grow numb to it. And when you get to the finale, when it should feel bigger, unlike any other scene that has come before it, I just didn't care. it feels weightless. And of course, I'm going to complain about the final fight and how Superman actively just lets millions of people die. I do like how it gets addressed in the sequel, but it is just one of those decisions I can't wrap my head around. Like, what were you thinking? Zod kicks this gasoline truck at Superman and he just jumps over it. Human life, the thing that he's been told to look at preciously, he just doesn't seem to care in the finale in any ways. And you can let some destruction and death happen as part of it, but there comes a point where you just go way too far and you're just like, yeah, that's just way too much. Like, even in the Avengers, they made a point to go out of the way to protect people. And yeah, Superman doesn't do that here. I hate the structure of this movie. It's quite clear that Zack Snyder took note from Batman Begins here. And in Batman Begins, it works for many different reasons. Here, it doesn't. It doesn't add anything to the experience. In fact, I think it takes away. Like, we're focusing on Superman saving some people on an oil tanker, and then it's him as a kid, then it's on Lois Lane, then it's back to him at a restaurant, then it's back to him as a kid. It's just, what's the wisdom of flow here? It just feels like random scenes. And it just destroyed the pacing of the movie and destroyed the characters, which I'll get to in a bit. I also hate the thematic core of this movie because it tries to make it about, should he reveal himself to the world? Could humanity take in the fact that somebody like him exists? And it's just a thematic core that has never resonated with me, and it just feels empty. You know, it's quite obviously should have been him protecting people, and at what cost. But the movie just doesn't want to go in that direction, and you can see the moment that it doesn't, because Clark as a kid saved a bus filled with other kids. And Jonathan Kent's just like, you can't be doing that. And Clark's just like, what was I supposed to do? Just let them die? And Jonathan Kent, his father figure, the wise mentor, tells him maybe. You can tell he's not entirely sure about it, but just maybe he should have let all those people die. Like, this is the moment where he's incorrect and Clark is correct, and where he should learn that as his parent, he should just throw away his fears of the possible rejection of his son and lean into what his son could be. But they don't do that, and when Jonathan Kent dies, it is the most stupid, ridiculous moment that loses me every single time. I just can't believe they went ahead with that. Not only is it stupid enough that he dies to save some stupid dog, which is just baffling, but Clark watches his father die because it's better not for people to know who you are than it is to save lives. I'm not on this movie's wavelengths at all, and it's just very frustrating while watching it. And then we get to the villains, who I think are just terribly written in every way. They're so painfully generic without an ounce of depth or nuance given to them. And I find it frustrating that all the bad guys are so much more powerful than Clark, because it doesn't make sense. He's been on this planet for a long time. He's had time to train himself and to master his powers. But for some reason, everyone else just outpowers him every opportunity. Like, it would have been great if, it was more balanced. Like, there was more of them, the warriors, but they don't quite have a hand on their powers compared to one guy who does know how to lose his powers. But nope, the movie doesn't go in that interesting direction, and I will give the movie props where it's due that this movie is perfectly casted. But nobody gives a good performance. Henry Cavill, I know lots of you love him as this character, and for the life of me, I don't see why. I do think he's a good pick, but not only does he not represent what Superman should, but his performance here is just flat, and it's because he has nothing to work with. This is a boring character. Then you've got Amy Adams, one of the best actresses ever, and she's given nothing to do. She's very flat. Michael Shannon, I think, is a very good actor who's actually quite wasted, but I think he's very forgettable as Zod. You've got Diane Lane, who I guess does a fine job, but not given enough to do. Once again, I blame the structure. And Kevin Costner, perfect casting. He's fine. The writing around his character sucks. Russell Crowe, perfectly casted. And I liked him to begin with, but then, I don't know, he just doesn't have a lot to do. And then you've got Lawrence Fishburne, who I think is perfectly casted and just not utilized properly. So I think the characters are mishandled. The thematic core of this movie just doesn't resonate with me in any way. The story is a mess and I hate the structure. The utilization of the action is just way too much. And it's just frustrating because I can see the potential here, but they just make every wrong decision every opportunity. I like the look of this movie. There's a few moments that stand out, and I love the musical score. But every time I watch it, I just get frustrated. So I'll give Man of Steel a 4 out of 10. Okay, have you seen Man of Steel? What did you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more videos soon. And Gavin out.